7:35.
It is 7:33, and Sheriff Brad Kunkel joins us. Here's what I heard over the weekend on social media. I pass myself off as a liberal, but I bend to the authorities by having you on.
Oh, they said that to you.
Having you on the show. Yeah, lift that up a little bit.
Thank you for your service. I appreciate. I don't know what to say.
You can do both.
Jeez Louise.
You can be liberal and still law-abiding.
Yeah, the two things can exist at the same time.
Jay, I hope so.
With everything going on this weekend with LA and everything, how are law enforcement officers? I mean, what part of your training do you learn to deal with stuff like crowd control and protests and things?
Well, I'd say there's two parts to it. There's like the legal training side of it. You know, at what point does a protest become unlawful? So there's the legal training involved, and then there's how do we deal with crowd control? What's our role in maintaining, the safety of the public and protecting property and upholding the public's right to protest. So we do both. We have the training and the equipment to do both. But one thing you're also seeing, I think you saw a good example of this was when there's a sheriff up in Michigan who, he kind of, I think, set a real good example of how to do it during the 2020 protests. I mean, he went out and actually, not only did he meet with like the leaders, he wound up walking with them, and they kind of found some common ground. Actually, now the guy's running for governor up there. But I think there's ways to try and keep it peaceful and help people understand there is a line that gets crossed and that law enforcement does have to take action. Like when you're, destroying property and burning cars or assaulting law enforcement, that's not acceptable. But also we want to make sure that people, when they're protesting, they are safe. One thing we saw during 2020 was actually some of the law enforcement interventions were from counter protesters coming in and wanting to do violence against the other protesters. Yeah. So we have to balance that too, and then we get stuck in the middle. So we train for both. Like I said, there's a legal side of it, and then there's how do you do effective crowd control.
Yeah, this is obviously that thing has just gone off the rails.
Oh yeah,
because I don't think it was very smart, and I think it was actually baiting to put the National Guard in there without the governor. It didn't make sense because I had been watching this all. My cousin is the police commissioner there, and I've been watching this all weekend, and those protests were peaceful until that was announced, and then people started coming in from elsewhere. And is that, how do you deal with people coming in from elsewhere? How do you diffuse that?
You don't. You're not going to stop it. I think it happens in every community. We've seen that here before.
Yes, we have.
You have kind of an antagonist roadshow, really. They jump in the car and go find a place to stir things up even more. And you don't know that at the time. You don't really know in the moment who are the agitators that traveled 100 or 200 miles to get here versus the local people who are wanting to protest and express their discontent with whatever the issue may be or the state of affairs. So I don't know how you wind up dealing with it. The frustrating part is sometimes I think those groups, there's money that flows behind the scenes with some of those groups. I suspect it's...
You mean using it as fundraising and... Or,
yeah, I think that's a piece of it. I think there's money that flows behind of it. I question the legality of some of those funds and how they flow in and out of that organization, because they generate a significant amount of money, and then where does it go? Who holds on to the funds?
Is that why all protesters are we're labeled all protesters are being paid.
I think that's an easy thing to do. Is
Yeah.
just broad stroke all of them and say which that's nonsense. Again, we know that from our own experience. I'd say the 90+% of them, 99% are not paid. They're local people. So yeah, the idea that everybody's getting paid is nonsense. But I do think in the agitator world, there is money that flows within those organizations, and I think they raise a lot of money. And I have some serious questions. Where does it go? What do they do with it?
Yeah.
How does it flow out, and then where does it go?
Well, Friday at the beginning of the Arts Festival, there was a protest on the Pentecrest. People, protesting Israel's treatment of Palestinians in Gaza, and they were using, sidewalk chalk and making signs and stuff like that, and nobody bothered them. I didn't see any law enforcement anywhere near them. It was just a peaceful,
Yeah,
way to express their opinions. And there's a big thing right on the sidewalk of the Pentecrest. People are allowed to express their own opinions. As long as it's done peacefully and without criminal activity. It's more, we welcome it on our campus. And we've got this No King's Day protest coming up this Saturday to counter the military parade in Washington. And obviously, Iowa City is not the only group that's going to do it. It's going to be probably hundreds across the country participating in this. And,
Thousands.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I thought your wife was demonstrating. Thought that was about you.
Sheriff Kunkel refuses to take out the garbage.
I was
Time and
it's
time
funny.
again he's been asked.
I was. My morning did not start off good today, and she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Well," and then I'll tell you since you asked. I go we have a lab, so
Yeah.
for lab owners, you kind of know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
He's 2, but he still sleeps in a kennel because you just can't trust him. And so I wake up this morning, go to let him out. Well, he made a mess in his kennel. So at 5:30 in the morning, it's like, okay, that's not how to start the day.
Great way to start the day.
And then it just and then everything from there just makes you mad, So I let him out, and I'm trying to get the kennel out, but I got to take it to the garage, but I got to move my wife's car. Well, my son was blocking her in, so I had to move his car. And then I go get her car. Well, the key wasn't in, and I had to go back in the house. Well, I couldn't get in the laundry room from the garage. I had to go around, and you know what I mean?
Just minor inconveniences.
Yeah, and then I back both cars out, and then I take them outside. I'm trying to use the hose, and the hose is about 34 degrees, and it's cold, and the nozzle spraying on me, so I'm getting mad about it. It was just comical. So, and the whole time the dogs are standing there looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This is your fault." So, and then I go in the house, my wife's like, "What's wrong?" Well, since you asked, and then I just told her everything I told you. And that's how I started the day today.
Sometimes the planets do not align.
It did
for
not.
you.
It did not. And it's cold. And then it's really cool this morning.
Yeah.
So, hose water spraying out of a leaky nozzle when what's the overnight temperature? 60 last night. It's cold.
It got down
it's
to mid
actually
50s.
50s.
Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now it's 55.
Yeah. Other than
That's
that,
not a good way to start the day. I think
Been a
we all
good day.
universally we can agree on that.
Labs are very lovable, but sometimes
Destructive.
oh yeah,
they question societal norms.
with the things they eat,
Yes.
golly. Anyway,
I had a black lab I could distract it by giving her a used racquetball.
oh yeah,
After a while they lose their energy, so to speak, and so that dog would sit there and chew on that thing until it finally popped. It could take 2 or 3 days, but that was all that dog did, other than eat and sleep.
our
And all of a sudden you hear,
our canines are both, they have a Kong, and that's a lot of those
yeah.
canines do,
Yes.
and they just relentless on those things. It's incredible the work they put into a Kong.
My dogs have never. I mean, they'll play with it for a little bit and then.
this is too much work.
Yeah.
Let's just go
Too
bug
much.
Daddy until he gives us a slice of lunch meat.
I mean, yeah, they never got. And I had black lab, and he was just great and never messed or anything. So I don't know what you're doing.
I think this is the second time he's ever. I don't know what he ate or what happened, but
Must have gotten into something
They
outside.
find things that are questionable to eat.
oh yes, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only the second time I think it's happened, so I can't complain. But I am going to complain because
Sure.
it's the last thing you want to deal with at 5:30 in the morning.
Especially on a Monday.
When I was a kid, my dog came in with looked like a bone, a white bone, and I thought, wow, he found like a dinosaur. I was like 6 years old, and hey, it's a dinosaur bone, and I took it to school and show and tell. And it was just a turd.
Petrified dog droppings, yes.
When I was a kid, I vaguely remember it, but my dad always told the story. We were fishing in a pond in Kansas one time, and we're walking through the field and find this big white, sun-bleached bone. I'm like, Dad, what's that? And he's like, oh, that's a bullfrog bone. I was like, it's the biggest damn bullfrog I've ever seen. And, well, I wanted to keep it. So the story he always told is he wound up carrying me in one arm and that damn bullfrog bone back to the truck. And then knowing what I know now, it was the pelvis bone from a dead cow. That was that thing was this big. But boy, when you're 5,
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing
it's
ever.
the biggest bullfrog you ever saw in your life.
That's funny.
So, well, it's summer. What are you prepared for? Does anything change?
Traffic and people. So I just I just sent an email to the patrol staff the other day, just a reminder about the importance of consistent and effective traffic enforcement and how that is a priority for the sheriff's office. Across the state, traffic fatalities are not going down as much as there's initiatives out there like the below 300, try to get traffic deaths in Iowa below 300. It's just not happening.
Well, and the excessive speeding is incredible.
So speeding is still a significant problem. The legislature passed that ATV bill a few years ago. I don't think it's a good idea, but we had to, they passed it. So now it's our job to do good education about it. But the fact of the matter is ATV related fatalities are up significantly since they passed that law.
So what is that law?
So it used to be that ATVs and UTVs could only be ridden on the roadways. Basically, it's an incidental to agricultural use. Well, now they can basically be ridden as other vehicles in traffic.
Oh,
Why was that a good idea?
There's a very strong, a lot of people out there they enjoy riding them. A lot of other, excuse me. There
like
are
in small towns and stuff.
Sure, small towns, like in more rural counties, you may have seen, they may have had an ordinance that allowed them already, and so you had kind of a patchwork of local ordinances too. So there was some confusion. In Wisconsin, they have a pretty extensive trails system. It's kind of a way of life up there. Iowa just really isn't set up to have those on the road like they are now, but they passed it, so now. They can ride them. I think municipalities still, they can regulate whether or not they're going to allow within their city limits. But in the rural areas, they're allowed to operate on the roads. They still have a lot of laws they have to provide. They can't go faster than 35 miles an hour. They have to have a slow moving vehicle sign. You can't drive them. You can only drive them on a state highway if it's only part of the most direct route from one secondary road to another, that kind of thing. But what you continue to see is and this is one of the big dangers with them, is that even though the operator of it may be doing everything right, if another motor vehicle hits that UTV, they run a stop sign, cross center line, or whatever, the operator of the motor vehicle likely they may get injured, but it might not be serious. If you're an occupant of that UTV and you get hit by a 6,000-pound truck doing 50 miles an hour, you're probably going to die. And that's where one of the big dangers we see in them is just that the occupants are at so much more risk of. It's almost like a motorcycle rider. A lot of motorcycle ride operators.
Except they're lower.
What do you mean?
as far as vision, ATVs are lower than motorcycles.
Sure. So you have a lot of things. You have a lower profile. You see a lot of UTV crashes that are, they roll over and tip, in the ditch. The occupant gets pinned underneath. They weren't designed. They weren't designed for operation on the roadways. That's why they're called like off-highway vehicles, and even the manufacturers will put warning labels on there, like not designed for highway use. So there's a lot of extra care you have to put into when you're driving one of them. You have to have a good understanding how it operates, but also there's just more risk because, again, even though you could be doing everything right, if somebody runs the stop sign or crosses over and hits you, there's a good chance you're going to be seriously injured or killed.
We've had kids under without driver's licenses under the age of 16 that have been killed and injured.
Yeah, and all the other traffic laws still apply. You can't drive drunk on an ATV, that kind of thing. OWI still applies. So the point is, your question about summer and the weather. I just sent an email to a patrol recently, just as a reminder that consistent and effective traffic enforcement is a core function of what we do, and it does prevent people from dying. Traffic enforcement and OWI enforcement are one of the few things we can do in our line of work that do prevent people from dying. If we can reduce the number of crashes, that's a good thing. So we see a lot more of that, and we have to think too about not only are we everybody's cars and trucks are on the roads. We're sharing the roads a lot more with everything else. In Johnson County in particular, we're a destination for bicycle events. You see more people using the roads for running and walking and all these things. And we have more rural growth in the rural parts of the county. We have to make sure we're doing what we can to help people have a safe to and from trip to work or to school. A lot of young drivers on the road. So traffic enforcement is a big piece of what we're looking at this year. Fortunately, it hasn't been hot yet, which looks like the end of the week is going to change.
Well, kind of middle of the week, and then it gets back into the 80s.
But I've noticed the boat traffic on the reservoir hasn't been very busy yet this year. But
seen a lot of people towing boats though this weekend, so it's getting there.
It's getting there. No, beyond that, it's summer's moving along. We're on the deputy side of things. We're full staffed. We have 3 openings for detention officers, which we're interviewing for this week or next week. I can't remember.
I'd be qualified for that. I served a lot of detention.
Does that make you a subject matter expert? Could you put that on your application?
I am familiar with both sides of the issue.
Every year after the legislative session, there's a couple training events that are held. One's in Coralville about the legislative acts of interest, and it's a law enforcement training to kind of give us an update on here's all the things that change in the session that are going to go into effect July 1st. One of them being the hands-free cell phone law that's going into effect in July. So a reminder to everybody to put the phones down. No more sitting there at an intersection with your waiting for the light to turn green and texting or Snapchatting like we see everybody do. I don't know what else. No, business as usual for now. We're still hoping to get our update from our joint space study. Probably in August is when we'll hear back from our consultant about
the same crap that's gone on since I've been in this community. The same. We don't need it, Jay.
Yeah. What's funny is I came across a folder a while back. I think it was after a failed referendum in 2000. And a lot of the local leaders had put together kind of a committee to, I don't know, what lessons learned and those kind of things, like a space study task force. And what's interesting is a lot of the things that were coming up, the counter arguments, the concerns, they are the same things I'm hearing now. Again,
it's exactly the same.
It's the same. It's the same kind of pushback, if you will, that we heard back then, and a lot of the same myths about college students. all those kind of things. Like I'm seeing those things kind of play out again. So history.
And it's frustrating.
It is.
I mean, it is. And
Well, we had
they know that at least this one counselor knows that it's a lie. Absolutely. And is pushing it anyway, and I don't understand. I do not understand it. You know, if they have if they've taken a tour of that place, the jail, they've got to know that it has to be replaced.
well, and for the safety not only of the officers and everything, but the well-being of the inmates. I mean,
well, and like I've tried to talk about before, you have to remember the government provides services for the people. You know, they have to do provide those services in buildings. Like you have to have a place to go vote and pay your taxes, and the government provides clean water, and they have to treat it. And the government also provides public safety. It's the number one role and responsibility of government and levels public safety, and you have to have the appropriate buildings to do it out of. Fire stations need replaced. If your community has an ambulance service like we do, you have to provide the building for the ambulance service, and you have to provide the appropriate place for law enforcement to do their job and to safely and efficiently house people who are incarcerated. End of story. And we are government infrastructure, and the elected officials have a responsibility to provide appropriate facilities that are safe for everybody and built in a way they can provide the needs for the long term. If government is building facilities or infrastructure projects to meet the needs of today, then they're not doing their job. Period. Cool. You have to be thinking about what are we putting in place so that we're not tying the hands of people, of the leaders 30 years down the road, 40 years down the road. You have to build things in a way so that you can expand with your population and the needs, and not put them in a position kind of like what we're in now. We're backed into a corner because of the decisions that were made 40 years ago. They had to do the best they could with what they were given, and now here we are, landlocked, can't go up, can't go out. Our office is twice as big, the population is twice as big. What's the alternative?
Well,
there isn't
people
one.
Don't understand, especially, okay, you arrest somebody with pot, and it's usually more than that. But that's not really up to you. That's the state. That's the law. You have to follow the law. It's, we get these ridiculous every day almost, and I'm not exaggerating. The police had that report. They lied on that. They lied on that. Take that down. They lied. These are sworn statements, and these are laws that are on the books that you have to follow. I mean, you can't lie on the report and go before a judge, because then it's you got a problem.
It's perjury.
It is. I mean, you lose your job.
Yeah.
You lose your whole livelihood for some of that. So, and to your point, like even if the occasion where somebody does get arrested for, say, a small amount of marijuana, if they come to jail, they are not there very long, and they are not making up our long-term housing problem. It is what I see a story this morning you wrote about a domestic third and some other stuff. Those are the types of things that are making up our long-term jail population. It's domestic violence, sexual assaults, robberies, gun violence. We have two. I'd have to look at one or two people in the jail right now for first-degree murder.
Yes.
What frustrates me is those things get overshadowed and ignored by people that really want to talk about, well, you're filling up the jail with minor offenses. That's nonsense. That's ridiculous.
Well, I did this point came up a couple weeks ago, and I just unscientifically went into the roster and saw what these people were being held for. And roughly 2/3 of them were what you said, violent crimes, either assault or attempted murder or sex offender registry, or something, grooming or something like that. Stuff that you don't want these people out on the streets if you're thinking right.
Well, yeah, and you got to remember too, the jail. The 90+% of who's incarcerated in the jail at any time, they're pre-trial. They haven't been convicted of anything. They're facing these allegations. They have bond placed on them. The bond is there to ensure their appearance in court But it also, there's a safety element to them. The judges have to make that decision about a risk to the public at initial appearance. And while they're in custody, my job is to make sure they are properly cared for, getting their medical, dietary needs met. We're respecting their rights. We're protecting them from themselves and from each other. That's my job. And the staff that works in the jail, they do an excellent job at it every day. And it's increasingly harder to do when you have high needs people packed in. You have a space that is consistently, leaking down onto the first floor. Or we're dealing with, it was a couple weeks ago, I think the HVAC in 2 different cell blocks quit. We had to get it fixed. I mean, these are just constant problems. And that's not a way to care for people. You need to make sure the facility is appropriate for the times and adequately providing the services. And it's 45 years old. The jail's at the end of its life.
I agree.
Yeah, and it just
pisses me
a
off.
jail
when
and an
people lie.
and a jail and an office building are two
Yeah.
separate things. I mean, a 45-year-old office building can still be fully functional, but a jail gets a lot of severe service.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard use 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
And they have a lifespan on them. I mean, they wear. I mean, really, you should think about these things as part of a capital improvement plan, like cities and counties or everything else with streets and roads and public works buildings and all these things. Like, you just think about, okay, we're going to be looking at this in 20 years or something like that. You need to have a plan for what you're going to do with your infrastructure.
Okay, so when all this stuff is going on now with ICE and law enforcement and everything, doesn't that filter down to making your job harder before the public?
Absolutely does. 100%. Look no further than, 3 weeks ago, the sheriff in Dubuque was in the news about, the letter he got from the National Sheriff's Association about, signing one of these agreements. And he sent a letter to the supervisors up there saying, hey, I got this letter and I'm not going to do this and all these things. I got the same letter. I think every sheriff who's a member of the National Sheriff's Association got the same email. And I guess I didn't take it as any sort of a threat or anything like that. It was more an advisory, maybe, if you will. I think it was just highlighting that here's what the goals of the Trump administration are. Here's how this could affect you at the local level if you're designated as a sanctuary. But I didn't take it as any sort of a threat or directive at all. I deleted it. No, I deleted it, moved on. In fact, I got a separate email from Homeland Security about something similar, about how it was like almost a very polite offer, like, hey, we're reaching out. If you would like to sign one of these agreements, please let us know. And I did the same thing. I deleted it. It became a big deal in one other county. There's 99 other counties. I never heard about it anywhere else. So the point is, these things, to your point, they become flashpoints at the local level when, and it does make it harder for us to do our jobs when we haven't changed how we do our jobs at all. And yet they do filter down and they create distrust, and we're constantly having to, it's like one step forward, 2 steps back sometimes with, national level issues that affect things at the local level.
Yeah. And what frustrates, this didn't have to be like this.
No.
At all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pushing a political narrative
And local law enforcement gets caught in the middle every time. We really do. And our job is to do local law enforcement, local relationships, local community service. And then, we get wrapped into it and politicized every time.
And then when I have you on, the National Association of Libtards rains toads on me.
I don't There's nothing you can do about that. Other than anything you or I could say that's going to change the minds of some people. That's the way it is. So, nothing we can do.
Well, we'll see you again next month.
Yes, thanks for
when fireworks are about.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the fireworks changes are coming.
That's a new law too.
Yep, the fireworks changes are coming.
It's the let her rip law.
Yes, that's going to be for a lot of people, very frustrating and upsetting. But even like with our dispatchers, I think we always get a lot of fireworks complaints anyway around the 4th of July, and I'm certain now that the law is different, and then for that little window, it's basically open fireworks season.
Yes.
Our dispatchers are going to be catching the brunt of those calls, especially like why would we even respond to something that is completely legal? Yeah. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So
right. And even before that, you could go out and respond, and the people shooting off the fireworks. Well, first the evidence is gone, and they're gone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And yeah, I think the poor dispatchers are going to have a rough first week of July.
Bring them donuts.
God bless them for what they do on a day-to-day, but boy, 4th of July is going to be tough on them.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, guys.
Mighty 1630 KCJJ.
We've said it for years. We want to give you our best